Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Index Office Hours. Today is the 14th of November, and this is IOH 133. If anyone is new to Index Office Hours, this is the town square where ecosystem participants come together and discuss the most important and relevant topics for the indexer community. This is a conversation. We love participation. So if you are interested in getting involved in today's conversation, please do unmute your mic. And if you're having any challenges with that, let me know and I will get that sorted for you. Or you can comment in the text box in the corner there. As a reminder, this session will be recorded and distributed onto public channels like YouTube. So if you're concerned about privacy, please bear that in mind. And with that, let's get into today's agenda. So for opening remarks, I would like to put our attention towards the latest 𝗨𝗀𝗳𝗂𝗹 episode, and that is with 𝗨𝘀𝗀𝗧𝗧 142. So many of you already know this, but 𝗨𝘀𝗀𝗧𝗧 is the CEO and co-founder of 𝗨𝘀𝗀𝗧𝗧, one of the core developer teams in the Graph, the first core developer team of the Graph. She has a very interesting career. She started off in Wall Street and investment banking and has worked for Barclays, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and then left Wall Street to join Web3 full time. She goes into detail about the latest R&D roadmap called the New Era, and there's kind of like a special AMA in this particular episode. So if you're interested in checking out the episode, I will grab a link. Unless Juan, there he is. There he is. Already onto the pasting of the links there. Thank you very much, Juan. Yeah, I noticed that as well when I was grabbing the link. Nick's in the chat, so worth flagging for Nick. It says the previous the preview of the link has the previous episode with Esther. So it might be worth looking into that, Nick. But yeah, there you go. There's the episode. Have a listen if you'd like. And with that, I'm gonna hand it over to Anna for our regularly scheduled refill watch section.
Thank you, Abel, and hello, everyone. Alright, so let's get straight into it. So today on RepoWatch, starting with execution layer clients. Since last week, we have had a new 𝗨𝗀𝗀𝗧𝗧 version. So this is 254.0. It avoids out of memory in Docker using cgroups version 2 limit. It adds beacon snapshot download, and for snapshots, it reduces the merge limit of blocks to 100K. And there's a few other changes, but this seems most notable. It comes with a warning for Polygon users that you must upgrade this release or higher before the Agra hard fork, um, which will happen in November 28th, so 14 days for now. For this release, we have already tested it on all of our Ethereum testnets, so 𝗨𝗀𝗀𝗧𝗧, 𝗨𝗪𝗀, and 𝗨𝗪𝗀, and it works without any issues so far. Moving on, new release of Guest. This is a scheduled maintenance release that fixes potential data corruption in path scheme, which could occur due to a power failure. So, for example, if your operating system crashes. Some of the fixes, so fix a potential snap sync issue with fat-based storage, fix it client properly forward explicit 1559 gas caps, and fix GraphQL content type in the response. We also have had a new release from Firehose Ethereum. This is version 2.0.0 release candidate 1. What you need to know about this is that it refactors Firehose Ethereum repository to use the common shared Firehose core library that every single Firehose supported chain should use and follow. For this release, a lot of changes have happened at the operator level, and there's some superfluous mode that has been removed, especially anything to do with reader node application. So before upgrading, you are advised to review thoroughly the changelog before upgrading. We have had a new release of Nethermind. This is 1.22.0. This comes with memory management improvements. So memory usage has dropped and become more stable, and long-running mainnet validator nodes have reported around 25% memory consumption reduction. It also comes with some host key adjustments. So a few minor bugs were discovered and all of the problems were addressed, and now host key should be better. And it contains some Cancun preparation for moving forward. Then we moving on to consensus layer clients. Here we only have one new release from Teku. This is version 23.11.0, which is an optional update containing bug fixes, performance improvements, and security fixes. And with that, that's all we have for the week on Repo Watch. So I will hand over to Juan. Thank you, Matthew, for sharing that you've been running the newest version of Firehose Ethereum in production since Saturday. All right, over to you, Juan.
Thanks, Anna. Cool. So getting into Protocol Watch, again, as always, we have, first of all, forum governance. Getting to it, GIP 63, which is a new GIP for optimizing query fees sent to indexers. It's a little bit controversial to give the TLDR. It's basically removing the 11% that's not going to indexers and just making it, as far as I understood, go straight to indexers instead of going to curators. This is controversial because, of course, it's changing a little bit of how the, first of all, the burning mechanisms happening in the protocol, because there's a 1% burn, which would be eliminated in this GIP, as well as the 10% rewards to curator participants, which will no longer have it because of the assumption that most curators are only subgraph developers that are self-signaling. Again, this doesn't mean that this is going to go through. This is up for discussion, of course. So if you're interested in the topic, please give your feedback in the GIP in the forum. Next up, we have add support for running mainnet. This is the same one that we covered last week, but there have been a few updates regarding how to actually run the node. Next up, we have Decimal Smart Chain integration, which again has a few discussions, I think, between Matthew and the Decimal Smart Chain guys. As far as I can understand, there's gonna be like a Telegram group. They're gonna be discussing these things and keeping up the updates for whenever they have new news on the thread. Getting to the next one, which is rewarding longest term protocol supporters. This is kind of like a question slash proposal that a community member had regarding rewarding some of the longest term protocol supporters. If you're interested in that, just go ahead and discuss it in the forums. For forum research, we don't really have any new updates since last IOH, which we covered the core dev updates for each of the core devs. Getting into the contracts repository, we have a few outstanding PRs, mainly regarding 𝗨𝘀𝗶𝗀𝗀𝗀, which will be the new testnet. For the most part, it's almost fully deployed as far as we can see. And then a few fixes to some of the latest audits that have been happening. For the network subgraphs, we don't really have any new releases, so that will be all for Protocol Watch, and I'm going to hand it over to 𝗶𝗀𝗀 now.
Wonderful. Thank you both for your sections there. Okay, now I'm going to hand it over to Tim, who has a few questions and things that he would like to discuss with the index community around the 𝗨𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀 testnet.
Awesome. Thanks very much. So my name's Tim. I'm within the Edge node, and I'm the product manager overseeing the protocol and some new data services, as well as the existing ones. Then what I would circle back with you guys about that. But the short-term thing is we've been working on deployment to 𝗨𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀 here, and I wanted to kind of like open it up to the indexer community in terms of a couple of short questions. The first, then they're all very, very tactical, but the first one is, where in the docs, if you were to guide a new indexer, would we need to update it? Because we're going to make these changes, so where do you guys go? Because I want to make sure that there's one place, or maybe there's multiple places that it would go. And then the second thing is, what if we're doing this, what is it that you would need to know from us, and how do you use these test nets? So 𝗨𝗶𝗄𝗎, both 𝗨𝗨𝗲 and 𝗨𝗨𝗲 arbitrum. So I'm trying to get a feel. So we're making this effort. We're doing it. I understand we have some usage in-house, but I want to make sure, A, if it affects you, where do I need to update docs? So I'm saying thanks, Jim, at 𝗨𝗚5 networks.md. And sort of like anything else that would, how does this sort of impact you? Sort of like the broader question. Let's say we just did it and we didn't tell anybody. What is there anything bad that would happen? And then conversely, how do you use it? So I have a sense of like the impact on the community. This is an open question to anybody, to everybody. Yeah, so 𝗨𝗟𝗧, my understanding is Arbitrum is not going to be supporting. So they gave us a deadline that we needed to provide a deployment to 𝗨𝗨𝗲 by the 18th. So we targeted the 14th to kind of get all our ducks in the row, but yeah.
Do we need a faucet for 𝗨𝗨𝗲 then?
I believe we do, and I think that has been an action item, and I think it got taken care of.
Yeah, with Payne would probably know. I think he was running.
Yeah, maybe it was Payne. I have to look, but there's a checklist, and I know that there is an action item for FOSS. Oh yeah, Ford would know. So if we just updated the things on networks.md, that would take care of everything.
Would we also have the Explorer UI to use, so we can sort of be lazy about contract interaction? You know, because in past test nets there was no interface in the early days, so we'd have to do a bunch of manual transactions or whatever to register our testnet indexer. So is the Explorer also going to be running alongside this, like it has done with the previous testnets?
Yeah, my understanding is I had pulled in what we call product engineering, and so that's like the UI, Explorer, and Studio, and so forth. And so they'd indicated that was supported. But from my perspective, I would love a way to know whether it works for you guys or not. And there didn't seem to be like a codified test harness. There was like a couple of scripts for the smart contracts, but I never got a feel of how we were testing. So we have some indicators. So I would love either one or two people I can kind of like work with and say, hey, this is supposed to work. Does this work for you? And like that seems like an action that you would take that you would want to check on the Explorer, for example. So that's helpful to know. What would be bad that happened if, let's say, we didn't tell anybody? Like we just didn't have any announcement, we didn't update the docs, and we just did it. Let's work backwards from that. What would happen? Would anybody care? Would anybody notice? Or
if they did, it's their own fault, I would say, because it's a test net, and you know, surprise stuff happens on test nets. So I certainly wouldn't be. I don't feel like there's any due responsibility here. However, it's nice to know, you know, like at an announcement or something, that things are running, you know, the contracts are running. Because, you know, I mean, I already have testnet. I've had testnet indexers running on all of the different testnets that I can always turn to, right? So it's only half an hour really to spin up you know, hit the faucet and then, you know, spend half an hour spinning up some, you know, really basic infrastructure, a graph stack. So I would be happy to, if you want to put me down as someone you want to come and check with, then I will, you know, I will have a go. You just ping me when you think things are ready, and I'll have a go at deploying a testnet indexer on the new network.
Super, that would be awesome. Let me see here. How do I find you? Jim at 𝗨𝗚5.
Yeah.
So you were just being a Discord, I think.
Yeah, I'll ping you now.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, the contract should be set, deployed, so that part would work, but just anything else. And I actually had proposed, you know, that we make these into ENS as a stretch goal, but doesn't look like that's happened. Anything else? Like, let's say we didn't have this. I didn't have an announcement. We didn't update the docs. What's the negative? Anything else? I see. You get a lot of questions in testnet indexing. Can't connect because one or two flags may be off. Is that something on the way we deploy? Is it the way they deploy the flags? 𝗨𝘀𝗲𝗃𝗀𝗃. Okay, and then the second one is, how do you guys use it? Like, we were at a meeting and I overheard some seem to be using it pretty extensively. What's the how do you use it? Is it just something that really only a very small number of people use? Maybe just the core developers? What's its use? What's its value to you guys? Just having these. Does anybody use it or care? And if so, can I hear? Like, I'm curious what you guys do with it.
I suppose I can sort of speak on behalf of the community again.
Yeah. Please.
So the obvious use case is that, certainly early days with the software, a lot of us spent a whole lot of gas on stuff that we wish we never had spent on because of bugs, etc., that are just naturally part of the process. So a lot of us have been burnt that way, and we've learnt our lessons. And anything we wanted to experiment or try, we do it on the testnet, especially around the agent and any automation in the agent, the indexer agent. Also, like anybody messing around with Firehose and stuff like that, like this stuff is, you want to stay well away from your production infrastructure if you're messing around with anything like that, or if you want to bring new nodes in, you want to try, maybe you want to try Aragon instead of Nethermind for Gnosis. Try those things on a testnet before you decided to go and do it on mainnet. So there's a couple that just come to mind immediately.
So does it happen that whenever there's a new release, you guys do test it all and run it all in testnet, or is it only if it's like a major release? I'm trying to get a feel for frequency and of usage. Like, is it like you really just run it in like almost a CI/CD? You just say, okay, we're just going to run, everything works, then you pull into production, or what? Is it more sort of ad hoc? Oh, I'm not sure what this thing is. I'm going to
I can talk about that personally and then generally.
Yeah.
So personally, at the moment, because I'm strapped for time, and in the past I've got involved in Slack on, testing release candidates and stuff like that, but I just don't have the time to do that anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Unfortunately, not that many people do that, but that's one thing we can always look at incentives in the future to incentivize people to test, be present for testing. But at the moment, I think usually there's a very small handful of people who will test things, and then there's those who love to test in prod. So it's a mix, really, right? Of players.
Okay, great.
And I think
cool.
see, everybody knows exactly who I'm talking about. And I think that's fine, right? But we need to find a way to incentivize more people to be involved in the testing process, because I know the guys, I know they really want as many indexers to get eyes on things before they actually announce a release.
Right. That's kind of why I want to get a feel, just sort of people's take on that, rather than this is really super. This is the quickest way to find bugs. I do that too. But all right, awesome. And then the last one doesn't have to take up a ton of time, but I am sort of curious about both as users of JSON RPC, and then if you were to offer a JSON RPC and run it, what are the pros and the cons? And this is not meant to be a large discussion. We can always ping me directly. I am kind of looking into JSON RPC as something that an indexer can provide as a way for someone else to get access to data. But I want to hear from the indexer perspective what that would mean to run this additional sort of service. So if there are people who have some quick thoughts, and then if you have a lot of thoughts, I'd love you to DM me and then just chat offline. But I am looking into this space, and I want to understand it from the indexer perspective. Okay, decentralized RPC is a big interest on our end. Okay, exterior. Oh, many indexers are currently doing this already exterior to the graph. Oh, I would like to learn more about those that are and chat with them. You are Derek at Data Nexus. Anybody else? Data Nexus. Okay. Anybody want to share something publicly about what they think about it? Like, let's imagine a world where the graph, and I'm not saying we can, but the graph said, okay, you can now, um, instead of going to like Infura to have JSON RPC for you to make those queries to a data consumer, a DApp developer, they could come to the graph. But those service obviously would need to spin up by indexers. Pros, cons, bad idea, good idea. What would be the feeling from the indexer perspective?
I guess here I go again.
Okay, yeah, please, thank you.
Infrastructure providers are mercenaries. They are interested in every income stream that they can get to survive, especially in times where, the market or whatever is not going the way we want
Yes.
it to.
Yes.
So indexers will largely have some ideals, and they'll largely stick to those ideals until they have an existential crisis of some sort.
Yeah.
But there are many different decentralized infrastructure solutions out there. DRPC is one that a lot of us like,
Yeah.
operated by some people that used to spend a lot of time on the graph. There's a few other networks coming out. There's Pocket.
Pocket. Yeah.
And there's a million different networks out there, right? And some people will run all of those, and some will run only a small handset of them based on their own deals. Like Josh says there, because he knows I would never run a BSC node.
Because it's too expensive, too heavy.
Because more than that, but I won't go there because I'll talk your ear off about my ideals. So let's not go there.
I see.
But
gotcha,
I think the general message I'm getting across is that indexers are open to all kinds of opportunities that will bring them more income so that they can sustain or build their business.
Yeah, for sure. Is there a reason to believe, based on you guys, since you guys probably already run them and you interact with them, that it cannot be a profitable business for indexers? Because if we wanted to do it, one important stakeholder for me is that the indexers can do so because they can run profitably versus the usage. And I don't have a sense of what this is. It's all obscured by the existing infrastructure providers. I can just see a payment plan and then this thing. Is it? And maybe you guys don't know the answer, but it like if you were running it, do you think, oh yeah, that's easy, and for the prices that you kind of see or you hear, yeah, we're going to be able to make a meaningful revenue stream? Or do you ever look at the price and the operations of running an RPC node and be like, oh, this would be a pain. I don't see how anybody makes money on this thing. They must be running at a loss. I'm trying to get that sort of hive mind insight into this from what you guys think. And I'm not saying it has to be scientifically correct, but some intuition that you would be excited that there is an income stream, or with sentiment, oh yeah, we wouldn't do it. We really know this is way more work than the market will pay.
I think that's less on the RPC service and more on the specific blockchain that you're providing RPC requests for. And I think DRPC, as mentioned in the chat, is a great example of this. I know just in our setup, we're running close to 12 different nodes, including testnets. And also, interestingly, testnets pay us a decent amount of money. And
really?
There's a lot of requests, and someone's got to pay for it, and so they're sending it our way, which I'm happy to do that.
Sure.
But with like DRPC, our revenue is in the order of magnitude of hundreds per month. But it is relatively easy to set up. On Lava, we're not getting paid anything, but we've already set up everything for DRPC. It was simple enough to set it up over there. So we're offering services on a network that isn't even paying us yet. But because it's it was easy to set up, and we had the computational resources to be able to handle it.
Yeah. Okay. This is super helpful. I would like to circle back to you guys individually as well offline. But Thank you.
I just have one more thing, just kind of a different view that maybe you can entertain. But I think there's also the view of, so indexers are already running these RPCs because, well, they have to, all these archive nodes. And some may have the infrastructure to, run multiple of them, and they have backups, and they can pick out whatever RPCs they want to provide to, if Graph were providing the RPCs. But I think, as Derek mentioned, it may not be a lot of revenue, maybe $100 a month or $60 or whatever blockchain it is. But I think there's a view also that, in the way Jim was talking about, in the mercenary aspect, is that we're already running these RPCs. So even if it was $8 I made that month, but it was $8, it was going to be running anyway, and I got $8 extra dollars. Okay.
Cool. That's great. I've heard bits of pieces of that similarly, so I like that, as that's able to maximize the revenue on existing utilization. So that's actually helpful. And then Brian, ProtoFire, turning almost $3 much a month, which is not a lot, but it's money, which is back to your use case. Yeah. And my hope is, from the perspective of the graph I'm still researching, is that it's earlier in many developer journeys when they go on the blockchain. So if you look at how it typically goes, they research, and then the blockchains will typically say, go to an infrastructure provider for your JSON RPC. Then they usually go to an 𝗨𝗀𝗃𝗀 or an 𝗓𝗏𝗓, and then once they're in that ecosystem, those infrastructure providers, like for example, 𝗨𝗀𝗃𝗀 now offers subgraphs. So to me, I'm exploring it from a case of it may not be money in the front end, but allows us to get earlier in the developer journey, so that they're more likely to stay for other use cases like subgraph and some other things. So it's also kind of like a way to get higher in the funnel to do it. So RPC plus subgraph services by the same protocol is huge synergy. Yeah, that's what that's my hypothesis. And so if anybody has insights, they know dApp developers, or you're a dApp developer, you have some other reason, that's super useful. And then one of the things that so this would also help me. I must ask, you guys know this really well, is one of the ideas is to find a way to, rather than just being an independent provider, to maybe explore, because I've spoken to two chains that they would say, okay, go here for our RPC endpoint, and it would be powered by the graph and indexers. So, chain A would say, here is our node, rpc.chain.com. And so sort of the idea is that the chains, we can find a way for the chains to capture a little bit of that revenue, stop sending them to infrastructure providers, and kind of be sort of involved with the protocol as sort of another intent. And the two chains, I've only spoken to chains, have been positively receptive to that, but I was concerned with how would the infrastructure providers think if that's what was going on. So use the same info for the graph. We have to run them anyway, spending almost $300 USD per node, I see, or less. Gotcha. Okay. And use our own infra, so set time of setup, great. Maintenance is super minimal. Okay, great. That's the other thing I wanted to know, was whether maintenance would be hard. And then I think the last one sort of related would be, and I guess it shouldn't be a problem, but I just wanted to see just to make sure, is one of the things we've been hearing from chains is that if we were the provider, they don't seem to be getting this from the infrastructure providers, is like an aggregate view of the usage of the RPC, and if anyone thinks that would be hard or not advisable, they are interested in, and some of them are doing it manually, to be able to see the breakdown by methods over time, by geography, and they said that would be another compelling reason why they don't get that from, say, 𝗨𝗀𝗃𝗀 and 𝗓𝗏𝗃, but if we provided that, that's value to them, because their real focus is to grow the developer community. So curious, does anyone feel that that's a blocker or a concern, or it's not doable?
If the graph is to start providing other services, right, world of data services, as Yanis, I believe, tagged it.
Yeah, right.
we have the brand, but what else do we bring to the table? It would be my question. That would tempt a developer or a team creating a new blockchain or whatever to choose the graph over Infura or Alchemy or Node-REAL or DRPC or Pocket Network or whatever else is coming in the future. That's the question I'd be thinking about. And I know for a fact that if indexers were offered again, it's the same message, another income stream, they'd jump on it as an opportunity. And the type of insights that you're talking about there, I believe that's the type of stuff that DRPC are very focused on, and from a product management perspective.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. That's on the right track. That was my hypothesis. Yeah.
Maybe Derek can talk more on that. But we've got the brand, definitely the strong brand, but we need something that sort of sets us apart from everybody else. I think that would entice developers to use the graph over something else. Maybe it's price, maybe it's, like you say, insights, or maybe something else. I don't know.
Hands down, it's uptime and reliability. Every consumer that I've talked to, they're less worried about the price as long as it's not like astronomically difficult or astronomically different. But whenever their RPC goes down, their front end just goes down immediately. Doesn't even if they have a subgraph, their front end still is gonna go down. It happened with 𝗨𝘀 just last week. They had a big release on Arbitrum. Their subgraphs are working fine, but their RPCs hit their rate limit, and then their front end was down. And so there's kind of a point from a consumer perspective of like, great, our subgraphs are still working, but our app doesn't. So it was just kind of this interesting point. But if we were to also offer RPC services, and even if that was as a fallback method or whatever, I think that's a very strong offering, and we have a lot of consumers that could pretty easily integrate that in.
Super great, thank you. So that was leading me to the last area, which, as I've been exploring it, is there something about how indexers run, or maybe the protocol needs to ensure that we are at least on par on performance and reliability? Because in a centralized environment, they can centrally monitor everything, but I've still heard that they've had issues with sort of like flapping and things getting out of sync. But what's your take here? Like, will we be able to, sort of as a decentralized community of indexers, provide something that is like as performant, if not more performant, for a comparable cost? Or is there something that actually makes this a harder problem to solve because it's decentralized to achieve that? Because that is my number one thing. I agree with you, Derek, in terms of the performance and reliability. What's your take, and how do we know that this is the case?
I mean, DRPC's reliability has been really good. Infura, it's not frequent that they go down, but whenever it happens, whether that's once a quarter, once every few months, once a year, like whenever it is, it's always a huge problem, and everyone gets heated because ultimately your entire consumer base of whatever protocol is jumping into your Discord and saying, why isn't it working, right? All that stuff. It's a really annoying problem in that it's never just like a light thing that one page is broken. It's your entire app's down, right? And that's why uptime and reliability are the most important thing. From some of the consumers that we've talked to, they'll use multiple RPC providers, and if one goes down, it just falls back to the next one. And so that's something that we've seen that's been pretty common. But from what I've seen, I haven't seen. I think DRPC's uptime is better than the centralized providers.
Okay, that's helpful. And so, do you think that their architecture of their systems are comparable to the graph? So, if a set of indexers were to go down, the graph and the way it operates, it will be able to fail over to another indexer within the protocol, using that as an example, or to detect the latency, or that it's not syncing. I love the idea that we can use DRPC as a proxy. How close in terms of architecture, design, and then the resulting performance can we use DRPC as a proxy for that?
Yeah, I mean that's exactly right. Like to give a really stark example, like 2 weeks ago, our data center had a total service outage. So we were down for 3 to 4 hours or so. Um, and in that time, all of the subgraphs that we were allocated to kept going because there were other indexers to pick them up. And the same is true for all of our DRPC requests. We stopped receiving requests because our stuff was off, and other providers answered those responses. And so I think that's a really compelling point to consumers that there's kind of a natural load balancing that can occur. But yeah.
So that actually happens. So in my mind, I'm like, that should work, and that's what I'm trying to just get. I'm just trying to fish for in case that really doesn't work the way it works. Like to me, that is a compelling story. I just don't know what reality is, and so it sounds like reality is it does work as it says on the label. So that's super great news. Just I think it'd be great to find some way to measure that.
The reality is that we have a piece of software called the gateway, which is essentially a very special type of load balancer.
Yeah.
And if we were to do the same thing for RPC, we would either have to write our own specific type of load balancer, which the analog here would be something like 𝗨𝗀𝗂𝗧𝗧, or there's another one by the 𝗨𝗀𝗲𝗂𝗧𝗧 team, which I forget the name of. Someone here will put it in the chat. Thank you, Matthew.
Okay.
So we either put those technologies to use or we write our own.
Got it. Okay, that's super great. If you had to put a guess, if you're saying we'd be fine with what as a guess what you know of those, or is there something that you would think we need to do a little research in writing our own, or is your sense this probably works? We just have to do a little digging, but 80% likelihood it'll work fine. Or is there some reason someone would say, those will not work for this use case in the protocol?
You'll get differing opinions on the different ones. 𝗨𝗀𝗂𝗧𝗧's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
ProxyD is relatively new. So you'll get different opinions on that. But there's good info in there. It'd be great if Chris was here, or if any of the GraphOps team.
GraphOps. I saw some names with GraphOps in their title. I was wondering if anyone was comfortable in jumping up, because if you're using it, that would be helpful just to kind of share. Because I've heard of ProxyD. I'm not familiar with the other one.
We are using ProxyD, yes. Can you please repeat the question? I wasn't fully paying attention.
Yeah. So what is would you feel comfortable saying, let's make this the standard within the protocol to be the load balancing across RPC requests to indexers as part of the gateway?
So we use it as default in our Launchpad stack that we are also sharing with indexers, and we will be using it in our own gateway when it comes available. So if I fully understand the question, I think the answer is yes. We have been using it consistently in production for quite a bit of time.
So if we're made part of the generalized gateway stack for all indexers when we roll out the service, you would feel that was a good architectural decision. Oh yeah, I'm familiar with Envoy, but
I think so. And also just to clarify, we did evaluate 𝗨𝗀𝗂𝗧𝗧 before we moved into using ProxyD. For the purposes of indexing and the architecture and how everything works here, we haven't used Envoy proxy, so I don't have comments there.
Sure, understood. Yeah, but having data for the specific sort of close to the similar use case, you guys have been using it. That's very helpful. So you've been using it in your own gateway. Okay. Yeah, I agree, Derek. Having a good free rate limited, and the idea is it's not just us promoting it. So this is the reason why I want to make sure that the form factor, so that in case there's a gotcha around it, so a chain like Meter or Decimal or Kadena or Polygon would say at their hackathons, here's an RPC. It's run but they're offering it, and it may be branded on their endpoint, but it would be powered by the graph. That's kind of like the idea. So it kind of like improves our presence. So that's my thinking is when you ask the question, how do we differentiate it? Some of it's going to be in the offering. So we're thinking about how we do the pricing. It might be usage based, but a lot of things are going to be sort of the same. There's only so much that we can do for the infrastructure. But it might be like go to market if we're aligned with chains and they say, oh, this is going to be a first class citizen. Yeah, we'll always still send them to Infer and Alchemy, but we know that we're making some, revenue if we can sort out that stream. But it's something that they're incentivized to do because they get the data, they have a little bit more control, that sort of thing. Yeah, I'm with Edge and Node. Okay.
Oh,
great. All right, thanks everybody for your time. This is very helpful.
What happened there? Did somebody try to speak or?
Oh yeah, I was just I didn't know if it cut out. My bind key's been misbehaving, but I was wondering if these other services that we're going to be offering, are they going to be in the same way indexing? Are they going to be stake gated, or is it going to be kind of like, hey, join the graph, link up your whatever SSL key to dshackle or something similar, and you can just start providing RPC and off and away? Or do you need to be an indexer on the network to provide all these other services? Or what's the thought process on that?
Yeah, I'm still evaluating. Like as a general overall ethos, we want to have as much sort of like both decentralized and staked. So the staking is a form of, I don't know if I'm doing this right. I lost. How do I get back into the event? Am I in? All right.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Or
Yeah.
okay, sorry,
Yeah,
I'm just not sure where I am. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
lost. I don't. All I see is
If
something
you
else. I don't know where I am.
if you go to the bottom of your screen there in the corner where your profile
Yeah.
is, there should be
Yeah.
voice connected, and then there should be
Yeah.
a link under that. Click that, and that should send you straight to the call again.
Oh, I can't hear you. There you go. Okay, great, cool, awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So, and I love what you guys think. So, I think the general, if we stepped up, the principle is we do want to move towards permissionless. We want to have people to come in. We want to have a market economy that people can come in. That's going to help to decentralize it and have more offerings. But we also want it to be staked. Staked is more a form of crypto economic security to ensure that people who are serving it, there's a risk of being slashed if they do something naughty. So I'm kind of like grabbing both of those. I don't know if that answers your question, but those are sort of the principles of how we want to roll this and any other of these services out from a provider perspective. Is there a thought that's like one way is better than another that's strongly held here, or maybe I can get a little bit of feedback, perhaps?
I mean, if you look at any of the other providers, they're all gated in some way, right? As soon as you go permissionless, you open up a whole new sort of attack substrate that can be used to,
Yeah.
have us end up with a subpar service, that kind of thing. Sorry, Vince, I interrupted you. Go on.
Oh no, I was basically just gonna hark on basically what you were saying as well, because I guess you gotta play that balancing act to where 100K is a lot of stake to if someone just didn't want to play the role of an indexer, which is a lot tougher than just providing an RPC. I think maybe 100K might be a big ask for that type of role, maybe something lesser, and maybe the community finds some type of security stake that makes sense for that type of provider in a way. But yeah, definitely something to, because if you just open up the floodgates, there will be, we might be getting misaligned data, bad actors, and kind of like what Jim was talking about. But I think just to circle it into indexers, we'd obviously have a less broad view or scope on what we can provide at scale, because it would only be indexers or someone who's willing to stake 100K GRT but only do RPCs. So I think there maybe needs a middle ground found within there. I'm not really sure.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it makes sense from what you said. Oh yeah, and Ford sort of said the same thing. It's just offered to indexers. That makes sense. That makes sense to me. Okay.
Just to add to that, like a lot of thinking has been going into protocol v2, and a big design goal there is to have a core protocol and then permissionless ability to add data services onto that protocol. And in that setup, I think we'll likely see something where each data service could define what stake is required to be a data provider, as well as some other core things like what the arbitration process looked like and who are the arbitrators and stuff like that. So it wouldn't be as tied down to a single protocol.
Yeah.
That's a big can of worms you're opening up there.
Do you feel like it's? Oh yeah, can you elaborate that on the can of worms?
I mean, if the data services themselves are permissionless, then anybody could build a data service, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's where you're going with it, Ford, right?
Yeah, I mean that's something I'm trying to drive towards. So we would have a core protocol and staking, and I don't want to get too in depth in it, but basically the idea I wanted to propose is that data services could define different configurations and different requirements to be providers, and some of those core things, stake requirements and arbitration requirements and dispute periods and things like that could be data service specific.
Yeah, I don't want to dive in any deeper because it's going off.
Yeah. What would you think of? What would be an ideal case for RPC? Because I like this comment. I have been thinking about it from State Machine. RPCs are a source of trust, and we all rely on it. And so, what keeping indexers, is that sufficient? Is that like the best way to do it? So if you're already indexing, and then sort of what's the bar? Is there some certain amount of indexing, or the staked amount is enough of the criteria to determine that's a valuable source of RPC trust level? And then I don't want to get into whether it's possible to sort of trustlessly get providers, but like what would be an ideal thing that you just sort of say, yeah, and the verifiability, like what's the, if you guys could say what would be an ideal scenario from cost as well as its reliability and trustworthiness as a data source.
Everybody's running the same client with the exact same version. I mean, it's not verifiability, right? But it's the closest you can. I understand you to be able to get to it is that everybody's running the same version of 𝗟𝗏𝗀 or Guest or whatever to deliver the service. I'd be interested to hear what others think about that.
Yeah, I would be interested too, because some support some methods and not others. So I was just looking at sort of a comparison mostly around debug and trace methods, and they're not equally available across clients.
Yeah, and it's not, indexers node infrastructure is not homogeneous either at the bare metal end or at the software end. So
yeah.
On Gnosis, you might have some people like me running. I like to run Nethermind and Lodestar, right? And other people like to run 𝗟𝗏𝗀 and name any other client there. So that often results in, I guess, what we call determinism issues.
Yeah. So what is the way to address that? Because if we do allow, let's say we keep the scope to the indexers, but they're free, as you say, to choose what client they run. So you have a heterogeneous client environment. So now you have determinism issues and then even access issues in terms of the methods. So to me, that would not be potentially a great experience for a consumer who just says, I just want to be able to make JSON RPC calls. Let's see these guys. what then? How then? Okay, let's see this laconic. Could you elaborate a little bit on what laconic does, Steak Machine, if you can talk? And then if not, how would you from this thing solve it? So to me, there's some issues, right? On the one hand, if you have everybody pick their own infrastructure, including the client, that sort of like allows them to optimize their infrastructure based on domain or other things, but it does potentially cause a problem if we'll say load balancing and someone is going from Geth to Aragon. Would that not cause a problem for the consumer? Okay. So we think the gateway can solve this depending on the capabilities. Okay, that's fair. So the gateway would have visibility into your client infrastructure, and we just rely on the gateway to make that determination. So it's not just load balancing based on load or response time. Got it? Yeah, exactly. Some operators may have, yeah, right. Some operators won't have trace support, and they don't even have archive. So I know for some things that, and so does that mean we should have the consumer make that decision? So I know if you work on a traditional centralized infrastructure provider, up front they pick, I want an archive node or just a full node. And then some not within infrastructure, they have to pick the infrastructure amongst infrastructure providers, the level of trace support. So does that mean maybe that's what we do? We put it on the onus on the consumer, and the consumer has their preferences, and then the gateway takes those preferences and then searches for that? Yeah, that's true. The method should be determined. So I like that idea. So if you call a method, it knows which gateway the gateway knows which node to indexer to provide it. Yeah. Yeah, it is. And so what is laconic then? Laconic network description, multi-chain verifiable data marketplace. Okay, I'll look up this offline. All right, any other thoughts for this? This was very helpful for me. And please reach out to me if you have more thoughts or opinions on this. Otherwise, I'll try to tag the people that we were just here, or if I didn't know how to find you, please find me. All right. Thanks, everybody, for your time.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Tim. That was a very interesting conversation, and thank you all for contributing. There we go. Yeah, thank you all for contributing. Yeah, it sounds like that was massively useful for Tim. And yeah, if you have any more questions, Tim, this is the best venue where the most engaged indexers come and chat, so you're always welcome back. I want to hand it over to Packer just for the final couple of minutes because he has some updates in relation to Project Watch. So I know you posted some links, Packer, but if you want to speak to some of them, feel free to.
Welcome from Windows 95. I'm just going to quickly go through the links that I posted. You go scroll up a bit, some repo-specific updates, anything of interest. I've included links for all the issues, so at your leisure, go scan those. I'm not going to go through everything, but don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. But also some learning resource updates, working with the GraphNode team to get some Grafana dashboards open source this quarter to help you all with operations. And please share feedback on the sharding resource. I've included a link to a Google form, so we'd love to hear from you. And yeah.
I added the very timely and relevant sound effect there. Awesome. Thank you so much, Packer, for that section there. Okay, we're at the top of the hour, so I'm going to take this opportunity to say thank you to each and every one of you for joining today's Indexer Office Hours. We hope it was useful. I certainly learned a lot. That was a very interesting kind of customer development-esque conversation, which was very informative. So thank you very much. Yes, thank you for the reminder. Yes, we have POAPs. I always forget, so thank you for a reminder there. Okay, let me just grab the here we are. The new code is very on brand. It is 𝗨-𝗟𝗂𝗪, which is a POAP to celebrate not only this conversation but also this new roadmap that has been announced on the 7th of November. So I'm just going to paste it here in the chat, new era, and you guys can go ahead and claim your NFTs. I'm sorry, gosh, your POAPs. There you go. Just to add the I don't know what that word means to the POAP app. Code. I'm assuming you meant code. Yes, you have to add the secret word into the POAP app, and for some reason they make you do this 2-minute long puzzle. But after the puzzle, after the game, you get your POAP. So yeah, just go ahead and paste that into the proof of POAP exactly. Although it feels a bit overzealous, 2 minutes is quite long. But I get it. It's for verification purposes, I would assume. Cool. So just paste that into the app, the secret word, new era, and you should be able to access your POAPs. The claim window is all the way up till 7:15 UTC. So you have another 15 minutes to claim, so no stress. There you go. Thank you all for attending. Here we go. We finished right on time. And we look forward to seeing you all again next week. And next week, in theme with the secret word, we're going to be talking about the new roadmap for the graph. It's a very exciting document that was published, the blog post that was published about the roadmap, and there's a lot to get into. So yes, we're going to be talking about that next week, and we look forward to having you all then. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.